Penn State just found that next linebacker to come in and don that number 11.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, that is right. You are Locked On Nittany Lions. Thanks so much for making us your first listen and watch every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Zach Seyko. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. And from HappyValleyInsider.com, Penn State rivals, special guest returns, Dylan Callaghan-Croley. We just did that instant recap, but we essentially have to do another one here as Penn State, They get the win, and that's why we say the whiteout game is so important for recruiting, because boom, they get him, 4-star 2025 linebacker. I know it's a year out, but it's still a very, very good get for the program. Out of the state of New Jersey, that is DJ McClary. A high-profile linebacker right now. Honestly, another player that I anticipate will rise up the recruiting rankings. But Penn State, they lose one New Jersey player, right?
Yeah.
and they gain another on the defensive side in DJ McClary. So not really necessarily going to talk about the past so much. I understand decisions were made, but looking towards with the present and looking towards the future, DJ McClary was in attendance at the whiteout game. So I guess that was the final decision maker, right? It was this, if it checked the box, it was all in for DJ McClary here. So Penn State gets its third commit in the class of 2025 now, given the way that the commits have gone here. But this is another high profile player, and honestly goes along with the theme of linebacker U here.
Yeah, I apologize if my voice is a little out of whack today. The weather and the lack of sleep, not a great combination. But yeah, a huge pickup here for Penn State on Sunday afternoon. And DJ McClary, somebody over at Happy Valley Insider that we've been touting Penn State to be in the lead for, and this commitment potentially coming since January, February, right around when Jalen Matthews originally committed to Penn State. Of course, he did decommit from Penn State last week. But McClary's been a guy that we've been really focusing on in that 2025 recruiting class as the potential next piece for the Nittany Lions. And we got some murmurs that it could be something that happened this weekend, depending on how everything went. And as the weekend came closer, it definitely was trending that direction. We put in some future casts for him, I believe, on Friday afternoon it was, and then he made it official on Sunday. But a big pickup for Penn State, no doubt. Top 125 prospect in the nation on Rivals, number 2 player in New Jersey, 6th best inside linebacker in the country. I mean, this is a huge pickup, and they beat out quite a strong amount of programs to land him. I mean, some of his other offers: Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, South Carolina, Tennessee, USC, Virginia Tech. Very, very big recruiting win for them here early in the 2025 cycle.
Well, and that's just it. You put it into perspective. He's a top 10 linebacker in the entire nation. So it's not like Penn State, well, they found a 3-star that's going to turn and maybe develop into a 4-star. No, this is already a player that is really recognized across the nation. And he's he's actually the first top 10 linebacker to make a decision like this. He's one of the first top 20 to make it. So this is going to set a nice precedent moving forward for James Franklin Penn State in the recruiting for 2025, because now you get, at this point in time, he's the best player in your class of 2025, at least the way that he's rated. Rivals has him as a 5.9. He's a easy 4-star. 124th in the nation, 2nd in the state of New Jersey. So he's the 2nd best player as of right now. Jalen Matthews, I imagine, would take the reins there.
He's the top guy in New Jersey.
Yep. And then 6th at the position. So you're getting a top 10, probably someone that moves into the top 5. I think he could be a top 5 linebacker when all said and done. The recruiting rankings are fluid. They're going to be updated. He's going to play more high school football, log more tape. But I think that it is very important that I understand guys like Ernest Willer and Jalen Harvey. Those were the guys because of the immediate, right? The immediacy.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
You want them to commit because the door is going to be closing very soon. You got to sign on the dotted line in December of this year.
Yep.
I know there's the next recruiting, the next signing period, but the
100%.
early signing period is the most important one. But to land a 2025 kid after a whiteout game in 2023 kind of speaks volumes here for Penn State recruiting.
Yeah, no, it's huge. I mean, we've seen Penn State really have a strong amount of momentum the last few months, 2024, 2025, even 2026 sixth class from Messiah Mickens, of course, come in last month. And this 2025 class, there's been a lot of guys over at Happy Valley Insider that we've been talking about, of guys to watch closely, guys that are quote unquote commit watch. McClary is definitely one of those guys with a handful of others that we were watching this weekend, and that I think Penn State could possibly add to this class. And I think we're about to see Penn State really garner some momentum in the 2025 recruiting cycle. But McClary, I mean, he's one of their top overall targets in this entire cycle. An absolutely dominant athlete for Snyder High out in Jersey City. He doesn't play elite talent, but he's dominant against the talent he does play, which is what you love to see when you're not facing elite talent. Not every kid out there is going to face future, FBS players across the board. There are, some guys who do so. McClary isn't one of them, but he dominates on both sides of the ball. I mean, defensively, 280 career tackles so far in his high school career, 45 career tackles for a loss, 4 sacks. And then offense, he has over 3,000 career rushing yards and 36 total career touchdowns. He's the best athlete any day he's on the field in high school, and he's doing exactly what you want to see out of a premier athlete.
So ultimately, he could be a top 100 player overall when all is said and done with these recruiting rankings. Again, he's only a junior. He's going to play more high school football. He's going to be at a very minimum at number 2, right? Maybe some things change. Jalen Matthews is very impressive. I'm not going to trash talk him just because he decommitted from Penn State. Very impressive prospect. But DJ McClary is in his own right. And the whiteout, the impact on recruiting, there's more to discuss. And I'm glad that you mentioned it. There are some other players on commitment watch, but McClary does a lot very well, like you said, dominating the talent at his level. Listed at 6'2", 205 currently. That projects very nicely because if he continues to grow, he could honestly move into that Abdul Carter frame, which is that 6'4", 230, 240. And the way I like to think about it is he ultimately could become that next number 11. Could he not?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a possibility. He has the athleticism and speed to be a sideline type linebacker. I think the big question at this point going forward is how is his coverage skills going to, handle at the next level. If he turns out to be, an okay guy in coverage, he probably sticks in the middle, which is perfectly fine. But if those coverage skills, can keep up with the collegiate tight ends, and when he's tasked to cover maybe a wide receiver or running back, then he could absolutely play the outside. And it's not something I'm going to rule out because that athleticism and speed is just pretty elite.
Yeah, very elite. And Abdul Carter, for what it's worth, was a 4-star, and I don't want to say a fringe 4-star, but he was closer to the 3-star rating as opposed to a 5-star rating. And look at the way that he developed.
Abdul Carter certainly, he was a guy that a lot of people pointed at as a guy who was college ready. But based off what he was doing in high school, and I think it's fair to say nobody expected him to be this good. We expected him to be a good linebacker, but I'm not sure anybody could really say they expected Abdul Carter to be one of the top at least 20, defensive players in the country, and he probably is higher than that as well. I mean, I don't think anybody expected that, but that's why we do what we do. We try to find those next stars. Sometimes we miss, sometimes we hit. But I think McClary has a chance to be a star for Penn State at the next level.
McClary, at the very minimum, minimum projects as a disruptor, and I think he's almost positionless. He could play. I'd like him to play that off-ball linebacker spot. Could play the Mike. Could play the Sam. But ultimately, just the way it is right now with the athleticism that he
Yep.
has, that disrupting capability, and that's what Abdul Carter is. He's a disruptor.
Yep.
DJ McClary at least fits that bill right in this given moment. Now he's got some other play. There are some other high school players that were also attending the whiteout that could be joining him, not only in the class of 2025, but maybe in the 2024 group as well. And we're talking recruiting, so it's fitting that we have LinkedIn Jobs as one of our sponsors of today's episode. And these new days, every new potential hire can feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs can help you find the right people for your team faster and for free. It is easier to create a free job post on LinkedIn Jobs, then add your job in the purple hiring frame to let people know that you are, in fact, hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with the right skills and the right experience so you can quickly prioritize who you would like to interview and then hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus the leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And Locked On Nittany Lions is proud to be your go-to podcast for Happy Valley Insider. Check them out, happyvalleyinsider.com. Penn State rivals, and coming over from happyvalleyinsider.com to talk recruiting today, Dylan Callaghan-Croley. So like I said, go check out the website for all the latest on DJ McClary and what is it looks like it's going to be coming sooner rather than later. Tiqwai Hayes has been projected to Penn State. He's a class of 2025 running back, 4-star out of Aliquippa, Pittsburgh area. Got to see him play. And now this wasn't exactly a good game for Aliquippa in the championship, but Tiqwai Hayes is definitely special when you get the chance to watch him in person play at that running back position. So Penn State, I think it's very important that Penn State continues to, yes, it's dominate the state. And Penn State right now is the best, and it's going to be for the foreseeable future, always has been the best football program in the state of Pennsylvania. But Pat Narduzzi, and I'm going to take a shot at Pat Narduzzi here, honestly seems to provide little to no resistance when it comes to players from the Pittsburgh area. Penn State has gotten Quentin Martin. They're now projected to get Tiqwai Hayes. Brady O'Hara is another name that we're definitely going to mention in this segment, but there's a long list of Pittsburgh athletes. How about Dante Cephas, who is out of the Pittsburgh area, goes to Kent State, and then Penn State's still able to recruit him away from his hometown. So I like it. You get to beat up on little brother here, but Penn State continues to go and get Pittsburgh natives to come to Central PA because, yes, the best in PA stay in PA, but the best are also leaving Pittsburgh, their hometown, to do just that. So Tiqwai Hayes, for the moment, is at least projected to be another one of them and would add and become the 4th prospect in this class of 2025.
Yeah, Hayes set to announce his decision on Monday. I forget the exact time off the top of my head, but expected to announce a decision on Monday. Right now, all the future casts on Rivals do point towards Penn State being the place for Hayes to commit to. We've been surprised in the past, but I would be pretty surprised if this isn't Penn State. It's just one of those simple things. Doing the math, a kid announces he's going to be committing on a certain date. He has a visit to a college just days before that. Potential
big game
commitment.
at that. Big whiteout game too.
Exactly. You rarely see a kid make it a commitment unless they, had their official visit schedules and then have a date after that. You rarely see a kid visit one school and then have a commitment within 48, 72 hours afterwards, not end up being at that school. So definitely right now, I would say we feel confident in our future cast that Hayes will be a Nittany Lion by this time on Monday.
And also, for what it's worth, right? Penn State's still following that 2 running back formula. Every single class from here on out, Penn State has made it a priority that they're not going to get 1 running back. They're going to get 2 that can complement each other. Nicholas Singleton, Katron Allen, Cam Wallace, London Montgomery, Quentin Martin, Corey Smith, and here we are, 2025 once again. So Messiah Mickens is probably under the understanding that he's going to get a teammate as well, a high impact running back player, even though he might say, "Hey, I'm the better of the two." But he's probably going to like that he's going to have a teammate that they can both have the complementary skills to benefit from one another, the way that Singleton and Allen have both done so, and the way that the future projects. I really like the dynamic duo of Quentin Martin and Corey Smith in the class of 2024 because Martin's that bruiser and Smith clocked one of the fastest time running at 22 plus miles an hour in a high school football game. So he's got afterburners for the speed. And then now in 2025, the way it projects, I would say that Hayes is more of the power back, the Katron Allen, if you will. And then Keandre Barker, who's already committed out of the state of Texas, may I add. And he's kind of that more speed, agile Nicholas Singleton type.
Yeah, Hayes, is very much more of that all-around punishing type runner who is not afraid to show his physicality in the running game. He can do a little bit of everything. He's been great for Aliquippa since he's a freshman. This would be a huge pickup for this Penn State program, and it's also a testament to what Ja'Juan Seider has done with the room once they get to campus, but just in his recruitment. I mean, you mentioned all of them. Singleton and Allen, 2 4-star prospects right there. Montgomery and Wallace were both 3-star, but both very, very good 3-stars. Quentin Martin and Corey Smith, 4-star prospects. Barker and Hayes, 4-star prospects. Messiah Mickens is a potential 5-star prospect in the future, a top 50 player in the country. Quentin Martin, of course, is a top 100 player in the country. This is not going to slow down anytime soon, and I think Penn State also is at a point that one day when Seider does potentially move on to another program to be a head coach or an offensive coordinator, whatever it may be, if he ever does do that, Penn State has done such a good job in recruiting and developing that position, putting guys into the league, shown that they can develop top high-end running backs that as long as James Franklin is there, I think Penn State's always going to have elite running backs. But it's definitely a testament to what Ja'Juan Seider has been able to do the last few years. And if they could add Hayes to that mix on Monday, it would be an absolute fantastic pickup for the Nittany Lions and give them, once again, one of the best running back duos in a recruiting class over the last few years.
Dylan, with your ear to the ground. So DJ McClary, there were rumblings. Tiqwai Hayes, it sets up perfectly. Brady O'Hara, we've mentioned him, a tight end, but honestly projects as a tackle for Penn State, going to play on the offensive line. Is the next one to commit? I'm looking a little bit further out. Is it going to be Brady O'Hara? Is it going to be hopefully a Jalen Harvey or an Ernest Willer? Nothing against Brady O'Hara. Or a Michael Carroll. I thought Michael Carroll could have been somebody because he's had a future cast, a projection to Penn State for a little bit of time now. He's a kid from 2025, but with the present, the 2024 class is getting ready to wrap up very soon. Jalen Harvey, Ernest Willer, did any of those guys, Adok Pai is another defensive lineman that they're looking at. Did Deion Barnes, James Franklin, and the rest of them make any impression on possibly adding somebody to 2024?
Yeah, the initial things I'm hearing are positive. I haven't gotten too much hard information back yet, but I think Penn State this weekend, getting Harvey back on campus was huge just because USC.
Or the whiteout too, yeah.
Yeah, USC has been gaining a lot of momentum in this recruitment. So I think getting Harvey back on campus, getting back into his ear again, that one-on-one in-person interaction with him again, definitely probably paid off to a degree for Penn State this weekend. Yep. I don't see a decision coming anytime soon. I think he's going to take this till the early signing period. But, I mean, is he going to be able to get back to USC before signing day? Who knows? But I think it's very much possible he gets back to Penn State before signing day, if not more, 2 or more times, just because of the distance. So I think the early returns I'm hearing are positive, but nothing concrete yet that I'd feel confident saying that, Penn State's definitely back in the lead. But I think If USC was, in the lead coming into the weekend, I think this is much more now a pretty even race as, we head down the stretch of the 2024 recruiting cycle. When it comes to Willer, didn't hear anything back just yet, but as I've been saying over Happy Valley Insider, this is one of those recruitments that if Penn State pushes, we feel good about their chances. But this is also a recruitment that there's quite a few question marks about going forward. Still a lot to play out. We'll see what happens. He still has to take all his official visits.
Right.
So there's quite a while left in his recruitment as well.
So still more to come now that the 2025 class took a hit, right? It was the best prospect in Jalen Matthews, and he ultimately decommits. But you bolster it by getting McClary back. With that being said, we have the outlook for the 2024 and 2025 classes on the way in just a moment. But let's hear from another one of our sponsors on today's episode, and that is Athletic Brewing. And now's the time for the game changer. Athletic Brewing is changing the game when it comes to non-alcoholic beers. Penn State's got game changers all over the football field. And I got to nominate Chop Robinson for all the pressures. He finally got home, got multiple sacks against Cade McNamara in the 31-0 shutout victory over the Iowa Hawkeyes. So Penn State's defensive end, Chop Robinson, is your game changer of the week. Athletic Brewing has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game. They make non-alcoholic beers that actually taste really good. They make non-alcoholic beers full of flavor, well-crafted, just like a full-strength beer, but non-alcoholic. They brew over 50 styles of craft non-alcoholic beers, including IPAs, Goldens, Sours, and more. You can find Athletic Brewing Company's non-alcoholic brews at a store near you or buy online at athleticbrewing.com. First-time customers can use the promo code LOCKEDON to get 15% off your first online order. That's code LOCKEDON at checkout for 15% off athleticbrewing.com. Near beer, exclusions and conditions apply. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times. And Locked On is amping up college football coverage like you've never seen before with Locked On College Football Kickoff Live every Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time across all the Locked On College YouTube channels. That means you can find it on Locked On Nittany Lions. I've done a segment as well since Penn State is a playoff contender, but check it out every Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time, live, Locked On College Football Kickoff Live, and then wherever you get your podcast when all said and done with the live show. Dylan, let's wrap it up here. 2024, 2025. I've talked about it briefly with Locked On's recruiting expert, Brian Smith, of how the 2024 rankings could shape up. They need to get Jalen Harvey. They need to get Ernest Willer. I do see them landing someone like a Lugar Adokpai to the class. I really think that would be a nice commitment towards the tail end of this, like a Chimney was, okay? And he was after the early signing period, but look at what he did to bolster the class of 2023, and there's already been good reviews coming back about him as a true freshman offensive lineman. So with that being said, what can you say about 2024? Is it just getting the two defensive ends or at least two more defensive linemen, and then that's it? This class is pretty set in stone. The rankings might not tell the whole story because Penn State checked all of the boxes they needed. They got a quarterback. They got two running backs. They got multiple wide receivers. They got defensive tackles and defensive ends. I like the class, but the team rankings don't exactly reflect maybe what everyone should know about this 2024 class.
No, yeah. I mean, obviously those two defensive ends are kind of the headliners right now of the uncommitted guys, but there's quite a few committed guys elsewhere that Penn State is still targeting. The wide receiver position is one that we are still watching very closely. I mean,
Nick Marsh?
Nick Marsh is a very, intriguing prospect out there, especially now with what is happening at Michigan State.
Michigan State's imploding. Oh my goodness, are they imploding?
What I will say about Marsh is his recruitment, I think, comes down to a lot about if Michigan State's wide receiver coach, I'm blanking on his first name, I think it's Avery, but their wide receiver coach is a huge part of that recruitment. If he sticks around with this next staff that comes into East Lansing, I think Marsh likely sticks with the Spartans. But if there's change at that position, I think his recruitment could potentially open back up. There's Rivals 4-star top 100 player Cam Coleman, who's committed to Texas A&M, who has
Wow.
been a guy who's shown interest in potentially, visiting Penn State down the road.
That
We
is a
have
huge one.
we have confirmed that with our sources. He's on Rivals a top 25 prospect in the country, regardless of position. Do I think they are able to pull that off? Probably not, but they
We'll
have
see.
an opportunity. But beyond that, I mean, Jalen Hornsby, another Texas A&M commitment, a guy we've talked about quite a bit in the past, wide receiver out of New Jersey.
Mhm.
Somebody to mention, somebody to watch. Rico Scott out of Bishop McDevitt, of course, is another name. There's a couple other guys, potential flip candidates to watch going forward at wide receiver and a few other positions. But yes, there's the 2 defensive end, but there's quite a few other guys out there that Penn State's looking to flip. And I should mention offensive lineman Andrew Dennis, another Michigan State commitment, as a prospect that Penn State is, keeping in touch with and potentially trying to get on campus here sometime in the next few home games.
And quickly, the class of 2025.
Yeah.
There's only so much we can do to project because it's still in the infancy stage. Okay. There's only so much you could say. Hypothetically, right? This is going to be up on Sunday, September 24th here, right after the whiteout game. Tiqwai Hayes projects on Monday, September 25th. And you still have only 4 prospects. I like the 4 prospects that they have, hypothetically, with Hayes in the mix, because you have Barker, you have Hayes, you have Amari Gaines, who's a very good cornerback, and then DJ McClary now as your headliner of this group. You still there's a lot of prospects that Penn State could go. There are a lot of prospects that Penn State could go after. Bryce Underwood was in attendance at the whiteout game. I never saw him being a Penn State Nittany Lion, but never say never, right?
Yep.
I don't like to speak about it that way, but
They're
stiff competition.
They're in the
They're in the mix.
They're in the mix. Yeah. Exactly. They have a fighter's chance at him, and if you're Penn State, that's all you can hope for. Like I said on the Happy Valley Insider, I don't see him ending up a Nittany Lion like you, but who knows? Potentially, he's now been on campus, I believe, twice this year. Potentially, that this type of visit could turn into a official visit. Even at that point, I wouldn't expect him to be an Nittany Lion, but if you can get him in on an official visit, especially now with recruits being able to take as many official visits as they want,
right?
Anything's possible. Once you get them on campus for that official visit, Penn State does official visits almost as good as anybody.
And Penn State, at least for the moment, right, in this very exact moment on Sunday, they have 3 commits and they're ranked 9th according to Rivals as an overall team for 2025. With Hayes in the fold, I got to imagine they move up probably outside of the top 5, but maybe they're 5th in this case. So Hayes, being an impact player, will be able to get them closer to the top 5, but it's still very early. We see Penn State jump right out of the gate being a top 3, even sometimes the number 1 class early with these recruiting rankings for the next cycle, and then they do drop down a little bit. So, but just it's better to be out in front and then fall behind than trying to play catch up way at the end. And Penn State, I think, does a really good job with recruiting that way. But Dylan, yep. I want to thank you so much for your time on this episode. Getting the recruiting perspective in season, right? You would think it would cool off, or at least it would be focused for 2024. But instead, we've talked about Messiah Mickens. We've talked about 2025 prospects with Jalen Matthews, DJ McClary, Tiqwai Hayes. I just think it's funny how that is, given that, hey, we're almost 2 months away from the early signing periods.
Yeah. And if I may, I'll even add a little bit of a little nice tidbit for your listeners here. Other guys in 2025 class to keep a close eye on over the next few months. The Haverford School offensive lineman Joshua Williams. I think this is Penn State's recruitment to lose at this point. Culpeper, Virginia linebacker Brett Clatterbaugh, somebody to keep an eye on. Do I think Penn State leads? I think they are in a very good spot. I'm not sure I'm ready to say they lead, but he is somebody that we're definitely going to be keeping a close eye on. And then Gonzaga safety out of Washington, D.C., same school as Olu Fashanu. Kanoa Winston, who is the cousin of current Nittany Lion KJ Winston. He's been to Penn State now twice in this month alone. Has a great relationship with the coaching staff. I think Penn State has a great chance there to add him to the 2025 class in the future as well. So just a few more tidbits for our listeners.
Dylan, I really appreciate the insight. Definitely insider knowledge here that Dylan is spilling for everybody else. Check out Dylan's work over at happyvalleyinsider.com. Dylan on X, Dylan Rival, I think it's Rivals Dylan CC. That's right. I got it right. Rivals Dylan CC at Twitter, at X. Become an everydayer. Subscribe to Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast, and more Penn State football recruiting content and just football content in general is on the way here on Locked On Nittany Lions.